Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrutyam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devi Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Hare Krishna. We are reading Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, second canto, chapter number 10, titled as Bhagavatam is answer to all the questions. Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions. Text number 9. Shukadeva Goswami is explaining to Parikshit Maharaj. In the previous verses, we saw how Shukadeva Goswami explained the 10 subject matters of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. In relation with the same, Shukadeva Goswami continues further. Shukadeva Goswami says, ekam ekatarābhāve yadā nopalabhāmahe tritayaṁ tatra veda ātmā svāśrayāśrayaḥ. Translation. All three of the above mentioned stages of different living entities are interdependent. In the absence of one, another is not understood. But the Supreme Being, who sees every one of them as the shelter of the shelter, is independent of all, and therefore he is Supreme Shelter. हरे कृष्णा. तो इसके पहले के श्लोक में हमने देखा था भगवान ने शुकदेव गोस्वामी ने परीक्षित महाराज को तीन प्रकार के लिविंग एंटिटीज के बारे में बताया था. 3 types of living entities are आदिदैविक, आदि भौतिक और आध्यात्मिक. So individual having all the different senses, the sharira is called as adhyatmic. And the deity of individual controlling the senses is called as adidaivik. And embodiment seen on the eyeballs is called as adi bhautik. So adidaivik, adhyatmic and adi bhautik. So 3 types of living entities. Similarly, there are 3 types of problems: adidaivik problems, adi bhautik problems, and adhyatmic problems. So further, Shukadeva Goswami says that all the 3 types of living entities, adidaivik, adi bhautik, and adhyatmic, are interdependent. In the absence of one, another cannot be understood. So for example, we have ātmā, then sharira, and the indriya. So all those are interdependent. But Supreme Being, who sees everyone and who is the shelter of everyone, Adidevik, Adi Bhautik or Adhyatmic, he is independent of all and he is the supreme shelter. Purport, Srila Prabhupada writes here, there are innumerable living entities, one dependent on another, in the relationship of the controlled and the controller. But without the medium of perception, no one can know or understand who is controlled and who is controller. For example, the sun controls the power of our vision. We can see the sun because the sun has its body. And the sunlight is useful only because we have eyes. Without our having eyes, the sunlight is useless. And without sunlight, the eyes are useless. Thus, they are interdependent and none of them is independent. That is very true. Actually, Adi Daivik and Adi Bhautik and Adhyatmik are related, closely related or interdependent. अगर आंख नहीं है तो सूर्य का क्या काम? सूर्य है और आंख नहीं है तो कुछ तो दिखेगा ही नहीं, और आंख है और सूर्य नहीं है तो कुछ दिखेगा नहीं. तो दोनों का so very interdependent. Therefore, the natural question arises concerning who made them interdependent. The one who has made such a relationship of interdependence must be ultimately independent. So this is a very important question, that as all the things, Adi Devik, Adi Bhautik, Adhyatmik, everything is interdependent, then who is the one who created all this interdependency? That is Samam Bonam, Lord Śrī Kṛṣṇa, Supreme Personality of Godhead. And He is independent of everything. That is why He created all this. As stated in the beginning of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, the ultimate source of all interdependent objective is complete independent subject. This ultimate source of all interdependence is the Supreme Truth Paramātmā, the Supersoul, who is not dependent on anything else. He is svāśrayāśrayaḥ. He is the only dependent on himself, and he is supreme shelter of everything what we see in the world. Although Paramātmā and Brahman are subordinate to Bhagavān, because Bhagavān is Puruṣottama or the Superperson, he is the source of Supersoul also. So, Brahmeti Paramātmeti Bhagavaneti Shabdate. So here we can see that from Bhagavān comes the Paramātmā and Brahman. So Brahman and Paramātmā, they are dependent on Bhagavān. In the Bhagavad-gītā 15.18, Lord Krishna says that he is the Puruṣottama and the source of everything. Thus, it is concluded that Śrī Kṛṣṇa is the ultimate source and shelter of all the living entities, including Supersoul and Supreme Brahman. Even accepting that there is no difference between Supersoul and individual soul, the individual soul is dependent on Supersoul for being liberated from the illusion of material world. So, ātmā and Paramātmā both are dependent on Bhagavān. So thus, everything depends on Lord Krishna himself. The individual is under the clutches of illusionary energy, and therefore, although qualitatively one with Supersoul, he is under the illusion of identifying himself with matter. So, आत्मा जो है वो डिपेंडेंट है परमात्मा के ऊपर. लेकिन माया के प्रभाव से आत्मा अपने आप को शरीर समझने बैठती है. यहाँ पे ऐसा लिखा है. तो इंटरडिपेंडेंसी है इनकी एक दूसरे के ऊपर. And to get out of this illusionary conception of factual life, the individual soul has to depend on Supersoul to be recognized as one with him. In that sense, also Supersoul is the supreme shelter, and there is no doubt about it. The individual living entity, the Jiva, is always dependent on Paramātmā, Supersoul, because the individual soul forgets his spiritual identity, where the Supersoul, Paramātmā, does not forget. हम भूल जाते हैं कि हम शरीर नहीं है, आत्मा है, और दिन भर सुबह पढ़ते हैं, शाम को वापस वही शरीर का ख्याल आता है, लेकिन भगवान परमात्मा कभी भूलते नहीं, हम भूल जाते हैं. In the Bhagavad-gītā, these separate positions of Jivatma and Paramatma are specifically mentioned. In the 14th chapter, Arjuna, the Jiva soul, is represented as the forgetful of his many, many previous births. In the 4th chapter, sorry. The Lord even remembers when he taught Bhagavad-gītā to sun god Vivaswan some billions of years before. The Lord can remember such millions and billions of years, as stated in Bhagavad-gītā 7.26. Vedeham sammitatani vartamanani cha Arjuna bhavishyani cha bhutani mam tu vedana kaschana. The Lord in his eternal blissful body of knowledge is fully aware of all that happened in the past, that which is going on the present, and also what will happen in the future. But in spite of his being the shelter of both Paramātmā and Brahman, person with a poor fund of knowledge are unable to understand him as he is. The propaganda of identity of cosmic consciousness with the consciousness of individual living entity is completely misleading. Because even such a person or individual soul as Arjuna could not remember his past deeds, although he is always with Lord. And what can be the tiny ordinary man falsely claiming one to be this with the cosmic consciousness know about his past, present and future? So Prabhupada ji here trying to explain that all these are interdependent, but Lord Krishna is independent. He is not dependent on all of us, and he is the supreme personality of Godhead. So he is the source of Paramātmā and Brahman. But somehow or other, the living entities, when ātmā comes in contact with the material, he forgets his relationship with Krishna, Paramatma, and he engages in the material activities. So this is very, very important. Krishna is independent of all. So we'll pause here and we'll continue next time. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram.